Paddy Pimblett is MMA's latest phenomenon, but is he a contender? One of mixed martial arts' most fascinating storylines over the last year has been Paddy Pimblett establishing himself as one of the UFC's biggest names. Since the Baddy has done this with just a handful of UFC fights on his resume, comparisons to Conor McGregor and his meteoric rise into a superstar has been made. But why has Pimblett buzzed the MMA world multiple times over at this juncture and created one of the biggest fan bases in the game? And while there's no doubt the Baddy has truckloads of hype and that his legions of fans would love to see Paddy hoist a UFC belt, will he? Moreover, can anyone safely say that Pimblett has the makings of a top contender in the UFC's lightweight division at this juncture? A division, let's remember, that has been called a murderer's row innumerable times, and for good reasons. After all, we've seen more than a few lightweight prospects from other orgs go from 100 to 0 real quick after joining the UFC roster. Can Paddy be the exception? Let's get into it. Paddys Rise. Now, if you aren't a hardcore fan or don't follow the regional MMA scene in the United Kingdom, then the name Paddy Pimblett likely didn't come across your radar until he made his UFC debut in 2021. But for fans in the UK, or who have been watching Cage Warriors events over the years, they needed no introduction to Pimblett when he joined the world's biggest MMA promotion. While for some folks, it might seem like Pimblett has leaped into stardom only recently, the reality is that for years he was making MMA headlines in his native England, especially in Liverpool and the surrounding region where Paddy is from. Although Paddy is only 28 years old, he's been fighting professionally since all the way back in 2012. So, if math isn't your strong suit, this means the Baddy had his first pro fight when he was just 17. That's crazy, and chances are there was no shortage of chatter about Pimblett and his fighting exploits at his high school. After winning his first 3 bouts, Pimblett was signed by Cage Warriors, which is the biggest organization based in the UK. Paddy won his Cage Warriors debut in 2013, and while he was handed his first defeat in his next outing, the Baddy proceeded to win his next 9 fights, which includes some bouts outside of Cage Warriors. The hype train for Paddy, at least the UK version, really started kicking into gear in 2016 when he won Cage Warriors' featherweight title. Of course, it wasn't only Paddy's success in the cage that garnered him so much attention. His Baddy persona had a lot to do with it as well. More on that in a minute. Pimblett's reign as the featherweight champs didn't last long, as he was decisioned by Nad Narimani in his first title defense. After moving up to lightweight, Paddy came up short against Soren back in 2018 and failed to add that division's lightweight crown to his trophy case. But, as we'll discuss in a moment, those defeats didn't really derail Paddy's hype train at all. Why? Because people still love to watch the Baddy fight and talk. The Baddy's massive appeal. There's no doubt that Pimblett's abilities in the cage and his impressive winning record have helped propel him into the star he is today. After all, you don't typically hear fans and media talking about fighters with a losing record who have never won a belt, regardless if they prompt laughs or gasps with what they say or how they look and act. But a huge factor into why Pimblett has become the MMA phenomenon that he is because of his charisma and talents on the mic. And let's face it, his extremely unique name, Scouser accent, and trademark mop haircut don't hurt him either, in terms of why people are still talking about Paddy's interviews hours after they watch them. Case in point, here's some of what Paddy had to say back in 2021 when it was announced he was heading to the UFC. "I was put on this earth to do this, to fight, and to give people entertainment. That's why I fight like a little weirdo. Not many people fight like me. I've got my own style. I'm never in a boring fight, win or lose. I've got people who love me, want to watch me, and see me fight. But there's also people who hate me and want to watch me to see me get beaten up. They all watch me though, and that's all dollar signs." In addition, the Baddy also had this to say about his persona and fan base. "It is like Beatlemania," Pimblett said. "And I look like a 5th Beatle, so it's even more perfect." There you have it. Even before he had stepped into the octagon for the first time, Pimblett was comparing himself to one of the biggest bands of all time, Liverpool's own, the Beatles. Not too many fighters have and/or could have gone there. Of course, it should be noted that Pimblett has found himself in a massive cauldron of hot water from time to time, on account of things he's said. For example, not everyone cared for how the Baddy initially responded to folks who believed Jared Gordon, and not Pimblett, actually won their UFC 282 bout. Further, a lot of fans didn't like how Pimblett carried himself after the very competitive fight. If you didn't see it, let's just say that Paddy didn't act at all like he had just been significantly tested. Here's some of what Paddy had to say, while firing back at his critics and the likes of Joe Rogan and Nate Diaz, who weren't down with the scoring. "I don't care what most armchairs say, to be honest," Pimblett told MMA Junkie. "That doesn't bother me. When pros like Nate Diaz say I didn't win, Joe Rogan saying I didn't win, that's when you think, F*************** G hell. But people who sit in their armchairs and comment on YouTube and Instagram, I don't care about. It's actual pros who thought I lost." Now, it should be noted that Pimblett did come around somewhat, in terms of how close the fight was. A little while after UFC 282 took place, the charismatic fighter reported this. "I initially thought I won 2-1, and I watched the fight back, and I thought I won 2-1. I'll be honest, it was a lot closer than I thought it was," Pimblett said. "I never dominated, but I think the only clear round in the whole fight is the second, and that's for me. The third round, he just holds me. He doesn't really do nothing." Pimblett also drew fire for controversial statements he made about Ilia Topuria and the nation of Georgia, where Topuria's parents are from. If these two ever fight, security will need to be on high alert and then some during fight week. But what does this all have to do with Pimblett's persona and fan base? Well, as the old saying goes, any publicity is good publicity, right? And that's certainly been the case with Pimblett. There's seemingly an increasing amount of people who love Paddy, and there also seems to be a growing amount of people who don't care for the Baddy. But either way, they want to tune in to see Pimblett win or lose. The aforementioned Conor McGregor knows all about that, and how being a talented yet polarizing fighter can deliver you some massive checks. But will Paddy ever hoist a UFC belt? So, there is no question that Pimblett is one of the fastest rising stars in the game. But is Paddy en route to becoming a top contender at 155 pounds? And does the Liverpool star have the makings of a UFC champion? Even the biggest Pimblett fans would and/or should admit that the answer to those questions is far less clear. During Pimblett's Cage Warriors run, he repeatedly showcased a top-tier grappling game and submission assault, which secured him multiple wins. Similar to one of Pimblett's MMA idols, the legendary Kazushi Sakuraba, who Paddy honored by wearing his trademark orange and white shorts. Two of Pimblett's UFC wins to date have come via rear naked choke. The Baddy has also demonstrated that his striking game continues to evolve. Case in point, in Pimblett's UFC debut, it was boxing that put away Luigi Vendramini. But while Pimblett is becoming more of a well-rounded fighter and a threat on the feet, we've also seen that his striking and his defense has a ways to go. Gordon was able to land 60 significant strikes against Pimblett, and some of the shots he did land looked nasty. In fact, some argued that Pimblett's seemingly granite chin could be one of his best assets. Others have also pointed out that we have yet to see Pimblett face a ranked UFC lightweight or a fighter in the octagon with a notable wrestling pedigree. Would Pimblett be able to put his submission game to work against the likes of, say, Michael Chandler or Justin Gaethje? That's a big question. Furthermore, would he be able to hang with either of those destroyers on the feet? And on the mat or in grappling exchanges, are Pimblett's powers on par with, say, Mateusz Gamrot, Charles Oliveira, or the champ, Islam Makhachev? Conclusion. At the end of the day, maybe whether Pimblett is en route to becoming a UFC champion doesn't really matter. If you want to be entertained, there's no doubt that watching Pimblett before, during, and after fights provides plenty of memorable moments. But ultimately, if Pimblett wants to go down as one of the greatest fighters of his generation, he'll have to put together a title shot run. As it stands right now, however, it's just not clear yet if Pimblett can do so. If you're still all in on Pimblett as a top contender today, right now, just take a look at the names of the lightweights ranked 15 through 11. Do you see a walk in the park for Paddy in any of those bouts? Be honest. Now, it should be noted that Pimblett is only entering his prime years now, so, one would think, his best fighting days are still to come. On account of the Baddy's fan base, he could be fast-tracked to a title shot, provided he can defeat a top contender or two. But what do you think? Is the Baddy a future title contender? Let us know in the comment section below, and if you liked this video, please be sure to like it and to subscribe to KO Central MMA.